The actual motivation behind changing my name was just that I've always wanted to change my name. But that specific name was Gaius from Tales of Exilia and Maxwell from the Tales of series in general, who's a summon spirit.
What inspired you to get into YouTube?
I lost my job. And so the job market was garbage in Australia at the time when I did. And I thought, well, while I'm looking for work, I might as well do something. And I was originally going to do like just a JRPG news show because I didn't know really what doing YouTube was about. And then it just morphed into basically what I do now.
That's an interesting place to start. Like, I just needed work. And how long? Like, it's not an easy market to get into, especially if you try and do it now. It's years ago, somewhat easier, but still required like consistency and effort and work. And how long was it like after you started that you actually felt like, you know what, this stuff's actually getting some level of traction. People are actually watching my content.
I would say probably. So I started off just doing general JRPG stuff, and then I started doing Final Fantasy Brave Exvius, that mobile game content, and that was getting a decent amount of views. But I just couldn't keep playing that game anymore because I can't play mobile games for that long. And then really the big hit was Xenoblade Chronicles 2 content when I started doing that.
Interesting. So you were just doing like guides and stuff for Brave Exvius?
Yeah, and character rankings and guides on how to get those different summons and that. So there were different ways to get them. Pretty much that's what I was doing for a while.
It's a safe place to start for sure. Do you still play?
No.
Okay.
I couldn't. Yeah. That's why I just stopped doing it. Like, I can't keep playing this game. I just, once you get to like, the end game of mobiles, it's just sort of.
It's just repeat the same thing over and over every single day forever.
Yeah.
And then
log in, do 10 auto battles, log off.
So it's safe to say
try to get excited.
It's safe to say you're a fan of JRPGs. It's kind of in the name. And I actually discovered something that you mentioned to us just before the show. Your real name. Some people in here will be very curious about this. Tell us your real name, first of all.
It is Gaius Maxwell.
Some people here might be familiar with those names. Kheldhinn is already informing people. That's not your birth name, correct?
I stream a lot of Tales games, so yeah.
Yeah, no, that's not my birth name. I changed it to that.
Yep. And why did you change it to that?
Well, the actual motivation behind changing my name was just that I've always wanted to change my name. But that specific name was Gaius from Tales of Exilia and Maxwell from the Tales of series in general, who's a summon spirit.
It's a pretty epic name. It's a very JRPG name. So if you want to get an idea of just how much this man loves JRPGs, he was willing to change his name to characters from one of the biggest JRPG franchises out there. Kristen is already losing her mind in the chat. She's like, I just absolutely love this. I know quite a few people in here right now are big Tales fans.
So Tintin actually came to my channel for the first time when I was streaming Exilia. So that's why it was, I don't know, interesting for me. Yeah.
When did you? Sorry, go ahead.
The worst part about that is that, so my old first name was James, but I used to be known as Jay. And so I changed my name right before I started on YouTube. And I'm like, well, I've just really fucked myself over here because I had the perfect pun. Jay, my name was Jay before, could have just been JRPG. And like, no, it's too good to not use it. So I just went with JRPG anyway.
Yeah. It's such a nice and simple name, though. It's so easily searchable. Yep. Online, and you can just. I was actually doing some searches for RPGs earlier today, and your channel was basically the first thing that came up in like 80% of them.
Well, that's good.
Yeah,
I'm glad that's working.
That's very good. Trust me, dude, you're right up there on the top of the rankings. Let's go back to Babby J for a moment. Back in the beginning, when he first picked up a controller and first saw like a JRPG and said to himself, "This is what I want to define myself by for basically the rest of my life." And when did you discover? How did you discover JRPGs?
I guess that's kind of a tricky question. Like growing up when I was young, my family wasn't that well off, so we didn't really have game consoles. Like I can remember playing Mario Kart when I was really young, like maybe 4 or 5. But after that, didn't really have consoles until like close to high school, so probably 10, maybe. But
wait, what year
my
would
best
this have been?
friend-
Just for reference.
I'm 29 now, so what's
Okay.
that?
So early 2000s.
Yeah, something like that. It was about the time of GameCube, that sort of thing. The GameCube was the first console that like I owned that was mine, not just like a family one. But back in primary school, back during the PS1 era, my best friend had a PlayStation 1, and I remember going to his house and he was playing Final Fantasy 7, and I was like, this looks really damn cool. And I ended up eventually getting a PlayStation, but it was at the death of that console. But when I first got it, my dad didn't buy a memory card for it, but I had a PlayStation and I had Final Fantasy 9.
Jesus.
And I used to, for 2 weeks, I didn't have a memory card. So for 2 weeks, I played as much of Final Fantasy 9 as I could over and over again. So I made it to Dali, like the first town in Final Fantasy 9, probably like 50 times.
that is a hell of a... And back then, could you even like comprehend that these games probably went on for dozens of hours as opposed to
yeah, I knew they were long,
Okay.
but I think at one point I did just leave the console on so that I could come back to it later. But yeah, I mean, I eventually got the memory card and it was all good.
And a whole new world was open. You finally got to see beyond Dolly.
Pretty much. I mean, so like so Final Fantasy 9 was like the first JRPG that I would have personally played and, really enjoyed. And then like the GameCube come around and it was Tales of Symphonia that really like cemented the JRPG love, I think, after that.
So you're definitely a Tales guy. That's even apparent from your channel. I do see like Tales a lot in your main banner and stuff. It's something that's always
wait, where are my Tales tattoos?
Oh,
There's
wow.
like Kratos from Tales of Symphonia. There's the Crucius Crystal from Tales of Symphonia. Wait. God, now you're making me de-dress.
Let's keep it PG-13 though. Just be careful.
There's Gaius from Tales of Exilia and Agria from Tales of Exilia.
That is phenomenal, dude. Seriously.
And the latest one is Edna from Tales of Zestiria.
Kel looks like he's about to start geeking out here.
But no Magilu.
Yeah, I
huh?
mean, no who? Sorry?
No Magilu?
Not yet. I mean,
Yes.
I have things to say about Tales of Berseria, but
I
hate it on reflection. I think it's a fine game, but I hate it for the Tales series.
Interesting. Oh man, we'll need an entire show just to discuss like the Tales games on their own. That could...
I could definitely talk a lot of Tales. And I will say Symphonia was my first Tales as well, but I don't have the love for it that so many people do have. I absolutely am not a big fan of Symphonia.
When did you play it and on what console?
I think it's because I played it too late. I didn't play it when it came out.
Did you play the PlayStation 3 re-release or the PC one?
Both. I played the original release and then I played the PS3 re-release when it came out on the PlayStation Network.
Yeah, but so you play so you did actually play it on GameCube first, though.
Yeah, yeah.
I think most of
And
us.
yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh,
I think for me it got.
I find.
No, go ahead.
I was
Because
just
I'm
going
on
to quickly
a
say
delay.
that most people I find that don't like Symphonia played it first, like when it came to the PlayStation 3, and it doesn't seem like much, but I do not like the re-release anywhere near as much as the original. It has more content, but it runs at half the frame rate. And I'm not a big like 30 FPS versus 60 FPS person, because if a game is designed to run at 30 FPS, it should play fine. But the original GameCube release was 60, so the game was designed to run at 60 frames.
It inherently feels
cutting it in
slower.
half makes the combat feel so much worse, much worse.
Well, I had the same problem with Vesperia, which is the one I hadn't played. I played it. I streamed it last. When did the remaster come out? Last year?
2018.
It was. I think it was last year. Yes.
I streamed it before they announced that they were going to remaster it. So I was halfway through playing Vesperia for the first time on a 360. They announced a remaster, and I'm like, great, that's perfect. But I absolutely hated the combat in the game. It was sluggish to me.
Yeah, exactly. Sluggish. And I said that to other people, and they're like, what are you talking about? I'm like, it feels like everybody is moving in slow motion. The thing about Vesperia is that if it didn't have Yuri in it, people would rate it one of the worst Tales games.
Ooh,
because it's
consistently thought of as one of the best. It's up there next to Symphonia.
Yeah, consistently one of the best. But you take Yuri out of that, because they love it for Yuri, and I'm convinced that people love Berseria because of Velvet. How much can a main character carry a game?
All right.
I think Velvet and Yuri are the answer.
I feel like I need like a boxing bell here, just to like.
Actually, I mean, we don't disagree on Vesperia at all. Like Yuri carries the game. I do like Rita though. Rita's a great character.
I like Rita. Yeah.
This is probably a bad time for me to point out that Vesperia is my favorite Tales game. Just going to put that out there. I started with Symphonia on the GameCube, and I'm pretty sure I have still have the disc around here somewhere. And I really enjoyed it. I thought the story was like nonsense, but the gameplay especially for the time, was there was nothing else like it. No other JRPG was as fast and dynamic and fluid. And I know you're probably wondering, Kel, what? Symphonia fast and fluid? It really did. That 60 FPS really did make a difference, because you could respond quicker and combo quicker, and it just felt much better.
I mean, by modern standards, all of the newer Tales combat it's much quicker and much more fast and fluid and that kind of thing. But I think back in the day, it wasn't exactly totally unique, but it was definitely pretty unique for the JRPG genre.
What's our thoughts on Graces though? Because I still think Graces probably has the most fluid combat, even compared to the newest games.
People say that, but Graces is like I go way out of left field with that love for my Tales, because I actually think Graces has one of the worst combat systems. I didn't like that direction.
It's very different.
I don't think it's bad. I just didn't like that direction that it took.
No other game in the series feels like Graces. It felt more like I was like maneuvering around the enemy in Graces than it was like actually maneuvering the battlefield, if that makes any sense. In that game, a lot of it was focused on like dodging around people and that sort of stuff, and it felt very different. It's probably the best combat in the series, in my opinion, but the characters were so like they were so tropey. And I know Tales is pretty tropey even at the best of times, but that game like just dialed it up to 11 in that regard.
The story is terrible. I mean, it's terrible.
They were pretty. It felt like they were doing what they did with Final Fantasy 15 and 13. Let me finish my sentence. It feels like they were doing what they did with 13 and 15 and just making the story up as they went along. It didn't feel like there was any real direction to that game. The Tales is a very diverse series. despite its traditional roots, everyone can play completely different to the other. And Hearts or, in my opinion, is the most underrated game in the series. I wouldn't say it's the best.
Yeah.
But
Hearts R has one of the like worst set of characters. Like the actual overarching story is okay, but man, its characters are bad. It's Japanese voice acting, which is the only voice acting it had, is really bad. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's got good combat.
Yeah.
It was actually fun to play, but man, it has the worst, most terrible, unmemorable, annoying characters in the entire series.
I was tempted to disagree with you, but now I'm thinking back to the game, and I don't actually remember the name of anyone.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
There was a robot dude, and
robot guy, and he had like coincidentally he had the most personality.
Yeah, he was the most, and there was the really flamboyant guy,
which I usually love. And then like there was Hisui, so like the brother, and he was just
god, like just the
like
angry,
really
the angry rival
jerk.
characters. Like let's just. I feel like Tails is probably the
Pokemon.
Yeah, I feel like Tails is the one series where it's do or die by its combat. The story and world can be nonsense, but if the combat is great, it's often like the pinnacle of JRPGs. Would you say?
Well, it's because there were so few action RPGs for a long time. You had Skies of Arcadia was Dreamcast, and it was action, right? Been a while.
No, that was turn-based, wasn't it? I'm sure it was turn-based.
Which game? Tales of
Skies of Arcadia.
Skies of Arcadia was turn-based. That game was stupidly slow. That game was like beyond painfully slow.
Which is why I can't understand why people always rate it so high. I tried to play Skies of Arcadia. I'm like, a battle is taking half an hour, and it's just one guy.
It has a really cool world and a really great setting, and the cast and characters are all really well fleshed out and developed. But the combat is a slog.
That's Kaitos.
I love
the game. It's a great game. It's an awesome game, but it's pretty slow.
This is basically just turned into a nostalgia trip on like our favorite old school JRPGs.
I did a whole video on how to pronounce that too, and I can't remember what it is, but I'm pretty sure it's Barten Kaitos. Yeah, I think it's something like that. Baten Kaitos.
I'm just going to go with Baten Kaitos because that's what I've called it my entire life. God, that could be another subject all its own.
Yeah.
Mistranslated things in... Yeah. Mispronounced things in JRPGs. So, Tales, would you say Tales is probably your favorite series in like out of all the JRPGs that are out there? If the tattoos didn't give it away.
Well, I mean, I've got Final Fantasy tattoos as well. But yes, I think Tales has definitely took over. Basically, by Tales of Exilia, it had taken over as my favorite. Xenoblade is now number 2 with Final Fantasy at 3.
That is a very valid list. Unfortunately, Xenoblade still only has one good game, so...
Jeez. Oh, God.
Xenoblade has 3 good games. The Xeno series has 7.
I am absolutely being
good
intentionally...
So... Question though, when you say that, because I have to identify myself the exact same. Final Fantasy growing up, I started playing with the first one. I played the entire series. It was my favorite RPGs of all time. But now I can't say that. Are you saying that in a ranking of the new games, or does that overtake even nostalgia for the older ones?
I think it overtakes nostalgia for the older ones because now there are more Tales games that I like than Final Fantasy ones. I mean, it's also tricky because when we're talking about Final Fantasy, I think I have to say main series Final Fantasy because I loved World of Final Fantasy a lot. I thought that was
good.
And
that game was so good.
Much better. That should have been Final Fantasy 15. It was a better game.
Agreed.
And I've probably put thousands of hours into Theater Rhythm and Theater Rhythm Curtain Call. I loved that series, that spin-off series. So yeah, I main series Final Fantasy. I know it's always been about spectacle, but there was sort of like they at least had a trade-off where it wasn't all about spectacle, and now it seems like that's it. It's just about spectacle.
So, you got to the end of the video, huh? Thank you for checking out today's discussion. If you enjoyed our guests or the subjects we were talking about, please consider checking the links down below. All the information will be there. You can find us on all the social medias and all the usual places under the name No Word Count. And if you really enjoyed the conversation, please do consider checking us out on Patreon and Twitch and helping to support the channel, because that will just help us to continue bringing you more great discussions with more great people. Take care of yourselves. Stay beautiful.